Well, welcome Dylan, Hannah, and Jake to Mandan, and thank you for opening a brewery.
Thank you.
Within walking distance of my house.
Yes.
That's right.
That's my goal. I live right up the street too.
And my name is Chris, and I'm here with Travis. Both of us enjoy craft beer, and just wanted to sit down with you guys and visit quick and welcome to the area. And I guess my first question is why go into brewing?
Well, I started home brewing, I suppose when I was 22, I think. Hannah bought me some home brewing gear from Northern Brewer for a birthday, and I kind of dove headfirst into it hobby-wise. I quickly realized that what I was going to school for was not necessarily the career path that I wanted, and I had a pretty big passion for craft beer. So it just kind of seemed like a good logical step after I was done spending some time in college to venture into the brewing.
Well, also, so we lived in Eugene for a while, and that's where we learned about craft beer.
Yeah.
And I swear, every day we were like walking, and Dylan's like, I think I want to brew. I want to learn how to brew. I want to learn how to brew. So when we moved back from Eugene, I saved up money without him knowing and got him a beer brewing kit. You know, all the carboy and all the stuff you need, except for the pot. We had to go out and buy the pot, but yeah, that's when he started brewing, and then he got a job at Junkyard. Shortly after that, he loved brewing so much, and that's right after Junkyard opened, and we went in there, and I don't know, I kind of solicited Dylan. She's like, hey, you guys looking for a brewer? My boyfriend brews.
I think I was in the
They
bathroom.
took him under he was in the bathroom.
Came out of the bathroom
Dan
and
was
the
just
owner goes,
like,
so, you want to get in and do some work here? Okay.
Yeah, Dylan didn't even know that I was selling him the Junkyard.
That's really cool. Though.
And that was just such a great place to start too. Those guys do some wonderful things, and they really took me under their wing, and I did really learn a lot working with them.
And ever since then, anytime we have a question, like there are days Dylan spends 3 hours on the phone with Aaron, asking questions and talking about what it takes to open a brewery and why his beer tastes the way it does.
Yeah, it really kind of morphed from a hobby that I was very, very passionate about, and it just seemed like a logical step to
get paid for it.
Yeah.
Well, then I work as an environmental scientist with the state for water quality, and Dylan had gotten started doing his brewing thing, and I've always had let's call it an intense passion for drinking beer. And I thought, well, geez, it kind of makes sense when your product is mostly water. Maybe I'll see if that's something Dylan and Hannah would be interested in. So one year they were back for Christmas break. I decided to ask them, hey, so you guys maybe want to start a brewery in town? And I guess that was kind of the beginning of the planning stages there.
Yeah.
Nice. Great. And thank you for the tour of the brewery. It looks like it's going to be a fabulous establishment with a lot of room, and the type of space I think that's going to bring about the name Dialectic. Or I looked it up in the dialectical method of discourse between two or more people having different points of view about a subject, but willing to establish the truth through reasonable argument. This is definitely the place to do that. And that being said, do you guys have any things off the top of your head that you're going to try and promote here with the community in the neighborhood?
The first few things that I've really thought about is maybe doing some book clubs. So I like to read, so we'll definitely have some books. Always have books available in the brewery, and I've talked to a couple other community members about getting together and having some book clubs. So maybe once a month, you're paying an X amount of money, getting a book, getting a pint, sitting down, talking about a book. That's definitely one of the first things that I want to do.
I think just in general too, the environment we really want to encourage is that get your community members together to sit down and have a beer with each other and have a conversation. It's pretty easy to go to a bar and zone out in front of a football game or something like that. You can do that anywhere. And some of the greatest experiences I've had and greatest conversations I've had are sitting in a tap room across from someone that I've never met before in my life, but you can sit down over a good pint of beer and have a good conversation and a good debate. And that really is the overall environment that we're looking to encourage there.
And even if it's just friends that you see all the time and you want to just go and sit down and catch up with, that's really hard to do when you go into one of the other local bars and it's music. You can't hear yourself think, much less have a conversation. And I have a lot of friends that live out of state or out of country, and when they come back and want to catch up, that's up to this point in this town, those are really the only options of somewhere to go. It'd be nice for a place where you can sit down, have a meaningful conversation with somebody.
Very true. Very true. I'm the same way. I've had a lot of great conversations
Oh yeah.
with with people out of the blue that I've met in like in Minneapolis, Fargo. Like I go to Junkyard or Drecker. I'll meet people, and next thing I know, 3 hours have gone by, and we've solved half the world's problems.
I know that story.
When we got married, we went to Colorado for our honeymoon because, of course, there's great beer everywhere.
Yeah.
And we didn't have plans, like we didn't make any reservations for places to stay or anything. Our motto, or what we did, we'd go to a brewery, we'd talk to people, we'd find a good place to camp for free. And then, it never failed. Every single night we had a free, awesome place to camp, driving to the top of a mountain, on the tippy top of a mountain, 6 peaks in front of us, didn't have to pay a dime. Someone just told us at a tap room how to get there. So, that's one of my favorite things ever.
Yeah, it just seemed like the ideal environment for a brewery. If you're going to sit down and have a good beer, you might as well have a good conversation to go with it.
And Mandan has always been very community oriented, and that's one thing I've always loved about this town. I mean, born and raised, I've traveled all over the United States, and there's nowhere I would rather be than here in town. There's so many events and so many community gatherings. This is, if I were to open a business, this is the town I'd want to do it in, and it's nice to have the community involved and be able to engage with the broader community.
Great. That being said, getting kind of back more to the beer, is there any style of beer or that you have a specialty that you try to perfect each time you make it, or?
So I like to tell people that I'm a pretty indiscriminate brewer. I love all styles of beer. I drink all styles of beer, and I really love brewing all styles of beer. I think early on when I was brewing, I really gravitated towards high gravity, big, flavorful, in-your-face beers. And a little bit more recently, I've been dabbling much more in session beers. That's going to be a lot of our focus here in the tap room is going to be on session beers. I think in part that's going to help encourage that environment, that dialectic environment. You can come in and have a couple pints and have a great conversation instead of drinking 9% beer and feeling like you can't quite get home safely. I guess as far as as styles goes, I've always been perfecting my wee heavy. My Scottish wee heavy has been one of my favorite styles to brew.
It's my favorite.
I think that recipe has probably had 100 different renditions that it's just tweak it a little bit every time, and it's every time I think that's right where I want it, but then I come across something that maybe I want to change this a little. So I do like to be very, very experimental. Yeah. I like to try to stick to style guidelines to some extent, but I also like to get very experimental. So.
Well, you worked at a brewery in Ohio. How many beers do you have logged at Untapped just from the brewery in Ohio? That was super experimental. We had free reign.
Yeah, when I was head brewer in Ohio, we were a very, very small system. When I started brewing, we were on a half barrel system, so literally brewing 1 keg of beer per batch that I brewed. Before I left, we had worked our way up and expanded to a 3-barrel system. But in about the year and a half that I was there, I had logged, I think it was 111 or 113 unique recipes. So any new style I come across or any blend of styles I come across that seems like a fun experiment, I like to dive into. So that's been a big drive of mine, is just keep playing with it. That's part of the craft of craft beer. Got to keep playing with that craft. So
And we really enjoy using locally sourced ingredients too, whatever we can find.
Oh yeah,
from the
two-track.
absolutely.
Yeah, 2-track malting, and like this past year he brewed a rhubarb saison from my large rhubarb garden, and I had a
rhubarb brown too.
yeah, I had a gentleman come over to my house, just hang out, drink a few beers with me and my old man, and up to that point he had only ever drank Bud Light, and my father and I convinced him to give that rhubarb saison a shot, and he fell in love immediately. Well, geez, do you have any more of this? You maybe have a couple of bottles I could take home? We're definitely onto something with the local ingredients.
Yeah, I think they burned through
I think
that.
they finished that keg in a weekend.
They
Yeah.
burned through that keg
It was only a
little
6-barrel.
faster than I would have preferred. But hey,
They were letting us stay at their house for free, so we came.
but that is true. I've brewed choke cherry beers and rhubarb beers, and I just and choke cherry ciders,
Oh, that was so
and
good.
I love playing around with that local feel. Especially things that are regionally specific. Being as I've lived kind of all over the country, it's fun to come across these ingredients that are very regionally specific and see what you can do with them. See how you can incorporate those into existing styles to make a nice, complex beer. I guess I like to be experimental, and I love any way I can do that with a good local product. That's for sure.
Great. Well, it all sounds really good, and I can't wait. Is there any specific time you think you might be opening?
We've been telling people spring
All
because
right.
we have a date in mind, but we don't want to tell people it because we thought that we were going to scrub all the glue off the floor in a day. We only rented the machine for 1 day. Well, it took us 3 days, and we did not get as much off as we had wanted. So we're learning with construction that it does not go as planned.
No.
So we don't want to say, we're going to be open this day and then realize it's going to take us a month. So we're just going to keep people guessing a little bit. We'll just say spring. It goes from March to June. So we'll be open in spring.
And the client base is very important to me. What people think and people's experience in the brewery is very, very important to me. And I don't want to discourage people or disappoint folks by telling them, oh, we're going to be open by March 1st.
Yeah.
Well, then March 1st comes and goes, and they can't come in and have a beer, and that's disappointing. I understand that's disappointing. Exactly. So I really want to try to avoid disappointing my client base. We'll definitely be open by summer of 2018,
Nice.
but I've been a little leery to give folks a specific date yet, just because I don't want anyone to get their hopes up and then crush those dreams.
I can respect that. I can respect that.
But-
Or you don't want people, like hanging outside all day. Oh, he's coming to the door. They can open. They can open. Oh.
Yeah. Nope, just got to grind some more glue
Yeah,
off the
yeah.
floors.
Yeah, you want to grind some glue?
But that's really all the questions that I have. I don't know if you have any questions at all, Travis.
I have a couple questions, and the first one would be the size. So how many barrels are you brewing and fermenting at a time?
Yep, so we're going to be, we'll be a 7-barrel brew house. At least to begin with, all the batches will be 7 barrels. My plan is I've left enough room in my brew house that if need be, early on I can jump up and get a 14 or 15 barrel fermenter. So if I need to, I can do a couple double batches now and again. The 7-barrel size has been, I found, is a really, really nice size to stay experimental, but have enough beer that you're not running yourself dry. I've brewed on 3-barrel systems that it seems like you're constantly brewing and you're also constantly on the cusp of running out of beer. So we really wanted a size that could allow me to be experimental, but also keep the supply reasonable for the customers. And that 7-barrel just seemed like a really, really nice place to sit there for that start out point.
While not having to brew every single day.
Yeah, because that can become taxing. The brewery in Ohio that we were at, that was kind of that story. It was, you're brewing every day, and even then you're hitting weekends where you're literally running out of all the beer that you can serve. There were a few times we had to put a sign up on the tap line up, we're out of beer. Sorry guys, next week we'll probably have some more ready, but and I just really hate to hit that point, if people want to drink beer, I'd love to have beer for them to drink, so.
Well, and it frees up time for you personally to visit with the consumers.
Yeah.
It really means something when you can sit down and visit with the brewer who made your beer, figure out what his process was, what he was going for, the flavors he was looking to achieve. He can explain so much more about the beer to you if he's not stuck in the brew house 24/7.
Yeah. And on that note, I absolutely encourage every single one of the customer base to, if you have any questions or any comments, any critiques, anything, I welcome it all. I love a great criticism. If you can help me improve my product, I'm so welcoming to that. I would absolutely love that. So just seemed like the right size for us, that kind of right in the middle there.
So then my next question would be distribution. Are you going to distribute kegs to restaurants and bars, or just be a tap room where you have to come here to get your beer? And are you going to possibly buy like a crowler machine or a small canning machine for it to go?
So, we will definitely self-distribute a little. We're gonna get a feel for how much we're selling, because we have a huge space. So if we can fill it with people, and if you guys can come drink our beer here, that would be awesome.
Close to the sources you can get.
Yeah. If you can see where the beer that you're drinking, if you can see where it's being made, I mean, that's ideal, right? So we're gonna maybe distribute slowly.
Yeah.
Hopefully sell as much of it in-house as possible, but we definitely have talked to some local restaurants. There's some people who are near and dear to our hearts, who own restaurants and things like that we would love to get our beer in. So self-distributing a little bit. Crowler, not right away, but definitely down the road we'd like to. We just ordered some growlers. They should be here any day, so you can get growlers. Just the 64 ounces. We didn't go for the smaller ones, but.
And likely down the road we may venture into doing crowlers and stuff as well, and we may expand distribution a little bit more.
But it's us three right now, so
yeah,
it's a lot of man hours to can and to distribute and things like that. So.
And off the bat, we really do, at least in the first few months, we really want to gauge what the taproom demand itself is. Like Hannah said, getting people as close to the source as possible is really important.
And we don't want to, give away all of our beer and then not have enough to serve our customers in here. So.
Exactly. But there should be a few local places between Bismarck and Mandan that you'll be able to look for the beer.
Keep an eye on our Facebook page. We'll tell you what restaurants have our beer.
All right.
We won't name drop any names, but we have been approached by a couple different places about carrying our beer. So
I got a friend opening a bar soon. I can't talk about that yet, but I'll tell you about it later.
It'll be around town as well. Just before we're up and running, I can't drop any names.
And that's a nice way to bring awareness, I guess, to our brewery as well. Is if you can get a few out-of-house accounts for people to be able to, I notice you have this beer. It looks like it's locally brewed. Try that. Well, maybe then later on I can stop down in at the brew house itself, And so there definitely will be some of that smaller scale distribution right off the bat. And absolutely the hope is to grow into that even more. Hopefully we can get to the point where we're distributing more and more to the local establishments. I will say it is very important to me that we cater to our local market first and foremost. I'm not looking to send beer 300 miles away if there's folks 20 miles from my home that aren't drinking it. You know, I really want to be able to supply it to as many local folks as I can first, and then we'll work out from there a little bit.
That's all I have.
Okay. I guess to expand on Travis's question, do you kind of know about how many taps you're going to have to start out with?
Yeah, the plan will be, we should have 10 beer taps running. The plan is to have 9 designated on a standard CO2 beer tap, and then we'll have 1 beer that's, we'll always have a nitro beer being poured. A good dark nitro beer is always fun, so. And then beyond that, we'll have likely a craft soda served on a CO2 tap, and then a cold pressed coffee served on a nitro tap. So we're looking at 12 faucets total to give us with 10 beers, a coffee, and a soda. And
Maybe a surprise.
Yeah.
Later on.
yeah,
There's something else we got something in the works
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
so there might be one other.
And obviously, some demand will play into that, on whether anything is sold out or whether anything is not selling like we would hope it to be. But the initial plan for opening is the 12 tap lines.
Any, since we had the tour, you know, you have the multiple levels in the awesome basement. Any thoughts about putting one of the cool casks in, you know, with the big bell and?
That'd be fun one day. Wouldn't it be great?
I would absolutely be, for one, I'd be a huge sucker for a nice barrel cellar down there. I love some good barrel-aged beers. I love dabbling with sour beers. A lot of the sour beers that I brew are kettle soured. It's not the traditional way of souring a beer, but it's the easiest and most sanitary way of souring a beer when you're still producing other beers other than sour beers. So that'll likely be how I do most of my souring. However, I've also brewed beers where I've done a traditional, Flanders red that is actually soured in the barrel, and it is pretty hard to beat that traditional style of brewing. So I would love to get a barrel house going as well. We'll see how much space we have and how.
Block, right? Just take over the block.
We do have some potential other projects in mind, whether for the building itself or for the brew house. There are a lot of things that we would very much like to do. The first goal is to get open and gauge the demand, though.
Yeah. And
we can add new and coming attractions as time goes on.
I'm a brewer, so I tend to drink my beer. A good majority of the beer that I drink tends to be warm and flat. Sampling beer out of fermenters, gauging where it's at and everything, and that has led me to become a sucker for a good old beer engine, a hand pump beer engine where you got a cask conditioned beer and 2 pumps for a pint, a single pump for a half pint, and I would like to get a nice hand pump beer engine going as well. But again, I'm going to kind of wait and see what demand is like on that, how people interpret that, and before I venture into it. Because although I like beer warm and flat, I found that not everybody likes beer warm and flat.
Okay, well again, thank you, Dylan, Hannah, and Jake. And again, welcome to Mandan, and looking forward to all the great beer that's going to be served here.
Cheers to that.
Much appreciated. Thank you, man.